Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
You're listening to LSU Daily with Matt Musso, your home for all things LSU sports.
Off running here, another edition of LSU Daily. Welcome in. Glad to have you along for the ride. Fired up today. We will continue to kind of dive into a preview of LSU spring football. Of course, the Tigers hit the field on Saturday for the first time in 2025. Well, I should say the first. Well, no, the bowl game was on New Year's Eve. So, yeah, for the first time in 2025, we talked about quarterback a day ago. Kind of dive into one of the biggest position battles today. We won't go through every position, just the ones that are most significant today. We'll look at the offensive line. Of course, LSU baseball, they begin another 5-game week tonight, Tuesday, against North Dakota State. First of two at the Bison before they welcome in Northern Alabama. And the men's basketball team is on the road to Kentucky, but yeah, that actually might be all we say about that. All right, so subscribe to the pod if you have not already. Anywhere you get your podcasts, that's greatly appreciated. Follow me on social media as well, and we'll go ahead and dive right into it. Football, LSU O-line. This is hands down, well, this and safety are hands down the two position battles that I think are most important for LSU this spring, and the ones that obviously by default, because of that, we're most excited to see and watch. Coming into this time last season, O-line was the sure thing, right? And while they had their struggles in the running game, when it came to pass protection, they were more than as advertised. You were returning 4 guys. You had the potential for 2 first-rounders at tackle. Will Campbell is absolutely going to be the first-rounder at tackle. And you could see all 4 of those guys drafted. In Campbell, Dellinger, Frazier, and Jones. You come in to this spring, and it's the complete opposite. You've added 2 bodies out of the transfer portal. You're having to replace those 4 guys. Along with the 2 guys out of the portal, you have a lot of youth and a lot of guys who have played for you who are looking to take the next step. And you have a handful of guys fighting for a couple spots. How many spots? That's really still to be determined. It's going to depend on the configuration that they run out there, right? You have flexibility with a guy like Josh Thompson, the transfer from Northwestern. Whereas Braylon Moore, coming in from Virginia Tech, is going to play center for LSU. So while that fills the spot, it also opens up a spot. So the configuration and how they run these guys out there, first team, second team, throughout spring is going to be fascinating to watch because you do have so many options. Remember, Brad Davis, LSU, they have recruited at the highest level you possibly can along the offensive line since Davis took the job. When we've gone through the list, right? You get Will Campbell, 5-star. You follow that up with Lance Hurd, 5-star. Yes, he's at Tennessee, but, you got him here. Emory Jones, 5-star. Then you flip Weston Davis and Cohen Eccles from Texas A&M. Davis was a 5-star. Eccles a high 4. Look at what you did this cycle, with a guy like Carius Kern, 5-star, and then Solomon Thomas, 5-star by some services as well. So they've recruited at the highest level at that position since Brad Davis took the job. So the cupboards are not bare when it comes to talent there. You just have to figure out who's going to fit where and who's developed and takes the next step. And we've talked plenty about those guys. And with Campbell, Jones, and Dellinger not playing in the bowl game, you got to see a lot of those guys, right? We got to see Cohen Eccles. We got to see Tyree Adams, who was healthy again. We got to see some Weston Davis. So those guys already have the kind of the leg up, but now you get the younger guys coming in as well. And everyone's really going to focus in on Kern and Solomon Thomas. And before we get into configurations and what this might look like for LSU, there's the one other aspect to speak about, and that is the spring transfer portal window. Because you'll remember when we were going through the traditional, the winter portal window, and LSU's racking up and building the number one portal class and things of that nature, the one position that they didn't address that everyone kind of expected them to, that was the one remaining, was offensive tackle. And Brian Kelly, when he met with the media back on the traditional signing day, because yes, that still exists, was asked about the spring portal window and what they still might be chasing come that time.
I think we go into this next portal window with no expectations of we need to get somebody out of the spring portal. It would have to be something that just was a right fit for us. So we don't go into the second portal with any expectations like we had going into the December portal.
No expectation of need, would have to be the right fit. Just something you kind of can't pass on, but also would have to fit in with what they're building at LSU. So that leaves you, we take that at face value, but that leaves you with what you have on the offensive line. It tells you they feel good about what they have. So we'll do this a little differently instead of just kind of going guy by guy. What are the three things we want to see or that we're watching for on the O-line in spring? First and foremost is where Josh Thompson plays. Remember, Thompson is the transfer from Northwestern. He has played both guard and tackle, started at left and right tackle in the Big Ten, a trenches league, but also has time there at guard. He's a veteran player at both and can help you at either. Where does he play? I feel like it was widely assumed that if LSU didn't get a tackle in the portal, an offensive tackle in the portal, that Thompson would play right or left tackle. So that's first and foremost, because I think that's going to really kind of, you already have your center, so now you can build out from there. Once you figure out where Thompson fits, it's going to be much easier for LSU to plug guys in. And here's what I mean. If he plays, one of the tackle spots, okay, the other one is up for grabs for either a guy like Tyree Adams or Weston Davis. There's some thought that Solomon Thomas can maybe even kick out potentially and do that, or maybe even a guy like Carius Kern. But I think who you're looking at first and foremost there would be Adams and Weston Davis. So that would kind of create at least a two-man battle for one spot, whether it be right or left. In doing so, that also opens up both guard spots, where we all widely assume that DJ Chester kicks down from center to guard. But then you have a whole host of options for the other one, whether it be Paul Mubenga or Cohen Eccles or Carius Kern, Solomon Thomas there too. Like, there's a lot of options right there as well. So figuring out where Josh Thompson fits best is really the next unlock, I believe, for LSU's O-line, and that's going to be a huge part of spring practice. Number two is those freshmen that we've already kind of talked about, specifically Carius Kern. That guy is an absolute freak athlete, right? I mean, we've talked about the 40 time. We've talked about him, the agility, him being able to do backflips and cartwheels and like handsprings and things of that nature at his size, which is just absurd. Brian Kelly on signing day in the early window said that physically he's ready to play in the SEC right now. Physically he's there. It's just going to be the development and how he can fit and pick up the offense and all of the blocking schemes and all of those things early on. So can Kern push for playing time? Can he have that same impact that Will Campbell had his first spring, where I believe it was after the second, it was either after the second or third practice, and Brian Kelly was meeting with the media and said, okay, yeah, we just looked at it and said it was time to move him to the starting spot. Is Kern that type of guy? That's something I'm very, very intrigued to see here in spring practice. And then, yes, Solomon Thomas as well. Highly touted freshman coming in. Can he push? And then the third is a guy like Cohen Eccles, because I think it's widely assumed, as we said, that DJ Chester kicks down to a guard spot. And if Carius Kern takes the other, well, that leaves a guy like Paul Mubenga and Cohen Eccles out. And Eccles, again, played well in the bowl game. what I want to see, and I'll throw Mubanga in that kind of veteran, realm too, just because of the playing time he got down the stretch for you in big moments and in big games and really had to grow up fast. Can Cohen Eccles come from behind and push either one of those guys and take a spot? And again, Kern and Thomas fall into that as well. Can they push those other guys and take one of the spots? But that's really where I see Cohen Eccles, because that's a guy who, again, man, just about as highly touted as you can get coming out of high school, and they like him an awful lot. So that's really what we're looking at on the offensive line. And I think the faster you can get there, and again, look, it's not going to happen in spring more often than not, maybe towards the end, but the faster you can get there and the more continuity you can get with the guys who you believe are your guys is only going to serve you better, because replacing 4 men along the offensive line is no small thing. Yes, they're super talented. Yes, they've recruited well. Yes, they like the guys that they have and whatnot. You don't just roll 5 new guys out there and end up replacing Will Campbell and Emory Jones and Dellinger and Frazier, who had played so much football together, and not miss a beat. There's going to be growing pains along the offensive line for LSU. That's why it's great to have a veteran quarterback like Garrett Nussmeier, because you don't just lose all that talent and carry on business as usual. But you like to have options, and LSU definitely has options. All right. We'll switch gears now. LSU baseball. They welcome in North Dakota State for a 2-game set here in the midweek. Kicks off the second consecutive and final 5-game week of the year, or I should say of the regular season, for LSU. Quick background on North Dakota State. It has been a rough start to the season for the Bison. They are 1-9. Now, they have played a really tough schedule. They opened the season with 3 games at DBU. They were swept there. They played a 2-game set with Lamar in the midweek, and we know what type of program Will Davis is running over there at Lamar. They got swept there as well. Split a pair of games with UT Rio Grande Valley, and then were swept at Alabama, who another top 25 team this past weekend. So it has been no slouch of a schedule, but it also has not gone very well. When you look at North Dakota State from an offensive standpoint, they're not going to overpower you. In fact, they're hitting just 197 as a team. Yes, 197 as a team. They are below the Mendoza line as a collective. They have only 2 guys, 2 position players, who have played all 10 and started all 10 games. There's just been a lot of interchanging in that lineup. They do not have that set. And LSU's pitching, looking for a little bit of a bounce back. This should be the prime opportunity for that. We'll come back to the pitching. On the mound for North Dakota State, it's not much better. They have a team ERA of 11.1. They have walked 58 and struck out 60. I'll say that again. Yes, they have walked almost the same amount of batters as they have struck out. 58 walks, 60 strikeouts. You're facing an LSU offense that is hot as this one is. That is not the numbers you want to be coming in with. I don't like to speak in absolutes really in anything, but especially in baseball, because it's a crazy, silly game where wild things happen. But, man, it feels like this is a couple games where LSU should be able to go out there, score at will, and kind of just, name the amount of runs that they want to put up. You should be able to get a lot of guys work here. This is a North Dakota State team that, yes, while they've played the tough schedule we just talked about, it has been a whole lot of bad for the Bison. The one thing they do well is field the baseball, and that comes as a bit of a surprise, because a northern team that has spent their entire season so far in the South, haven't been outside very much, you don't normally see them field well early in the year. But to North Dakota State's credit, they are at 978, which is better than average in fielding the baseball. So, that'll be interesting to see as well and have under the microscope. But again, a team that has thrown that many, issued that many walks, I would expect a very patient approach from LSU at the plate tonight and really be able to capitalize on what the opponent gives you. That's what we're looking for there. On the mound, this is where it's interesting, obviously, because, look, LSU's coming off of a 5-game week, and, man, you asked a lot of certain arms on your staff, and you learned a lot. Like, I loved seeing numerous different guys be able to pitch twice in 3 days, like Case and Evans. I mean, Case and Evans went Wednesday and Friday, twice in 3 days, and did his job both times. Had some help from the defense, but that, it's a team game. Connor Benj, twice in 3 days, right? You saw him Friday, you saw him Sunday. He did his job both times. But because of that, you're going to need to ask a few different guys to step up here for you in the midweek. Maybe give some of those guys a day off. For a starter, I would expect Connor Ware to get the ball, at least in one of these 2 games, probably Tuesday. I mean, it's been he hadn't pitched since Wednesday. So he's your most rested guy who could give you some length. You can maybe extend that pitch count a little bit more. See if you can't get him through 5 innings. And then there's some guys you haven't seen in a while, like Grant Fontenot. Grant Fontenot has not pitched since that 7th inning in game 1 of the doubleheader against Omaha. It's time to get him back out there on the mound, see if he can't bounce back. Jacob Myers hasn't pitched since the Monday night game against Nichols. And the command was off there. It's time to get him back out on the mound and see if he can't go out there and bounce back and eat some innings for you here in the midweek. I would love to see Cade Woods be back out on the mound after the struggles he had Sunday. He only threw 20 pitches, so he should be available to be hot. That's a guy who we've seen twice. He had one great outing and one not so great outing. You're hopeful to get Gavin Guidry back this week at some point from his mid-body injury, his non-throwing injury. When that happens, that's a guy who I want to see get out on the mound immediately, because just the prospect of having him and Case and Evans at the back end of your bullpen is huge. But getting Guidry back this week would be massive to help eat some of those innings. So there is a path. There is a path. Guys like Fontenot and Myers who haven't pitched in a week, or in some cases more than a week, this is when you definitely call on them. I'd be very interested to see if this isn't an opportunity to finally see Dalton Beck on the mound over the course of one of these 2 games, just as you try to figure it out. And then Maverick Rizzi. I need to see him get back out on the mound again, too, and have a really good outing. Because the last 2 have been a struggle for him, and that's somebody that LSU's hoping to be able to count on an awful lot. So seeing him get out there over the course of these next 2 days would be very beneficial, and hopefully it is dominant. Just to get some confidence back in him. He has great command again, all of those things. And because, again, moving forward, they want him to be a big piece. And the other thing I will say for the pitching staff that I would like to see, and I think that helps you, piece this thing together here for another 5-game week, is Jaden Newt and maybe some extended time on the mound for him. He's made 4 appearances, but it's just 2 1/3 innings. It's been really quick. A batter, 2 batters, things of that nature. I'd like to see him get out there, get a full inning, maybe a little bit more. Because Jay Johnson said a few weeks ago, that's somebody they want to move into this top 10 guys that they have in the pen that they know they can count on. So if that's what you're hoping for, well, let's see if we can get him a little bit more extended action here going forward. So you can piece it together. Yes, you just played 5 games, but there were some guys you didn't ask to pitch who you're absolutely going to ask to pitch, I would imagine, here in these 2 games with North Dakota State. So you have the arms to get through this 5-game week even after playing another 5-game. When you really lay it out, it's actually fairly easy to see how they could set it up. All right, we'll keep you covered here on LSU Daily with all things LSU athletics. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Follow me on social media. That's greatly appreciated. Twitter X at Musso Matthew, Instagram at Matthew Musso1. You can also find me on Facebook. And be here next time for more on LSU Daily.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.